Across the country, there is a growing darkness, a belief that the end of days is near.
I'm preparing my family for the total destruction of the power grid.
The Yellowstone supervolcano.
A financial collapse.
Lock and load.
Ordinary Americans from all walks of life are taking whatever measures necessary to prepare.
When survival's the goal, it's into the spider hole.
And protect themselves.
Go fast, 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 fast. Go, 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 go.
From what they perceive is the fast approaching end of the world as we know it.
So I'm gonna use like this.
Next, we go inside the lives of 3 committed preppers who have devised extensive plans.
What we've got here is 50,000 pounds, and it'll last 2 people for 20 years.
Gone to great lengths.
I eat what most people would call weeds.
And made huge personal sacrifices to ensure their very survival.
But you know what? When the hits the fan, she's gonna starve to death, and I'm gonna go.
Experts will assess their extreme preps and decide if they have what it takes to face Armageddon.
We built our house out of 40-foot steel shipping containers.
And to survive.
Go, 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 go!
This is Doomsday Preppers. Paul Range is retired from his corporate job and lives with his wife Gloria outside of Floresville, Texas. They enjoy eating barbecue with friends, relaxing on their back porch, and preparing for the end of the world as we know it.
Let's go, let's go. We're bugging out. I'm a prepper because I'm preparing for when hits the fan.
What we've got here is about 50,000 pounds, and it'll last 2 people for 20 years.
Paul and Gloria consider prepping for the apocalypse a full-time job. They dedicate 50 hours a week to storing food, building up defenses, and designing gadgets, all to improve their chance of survival after the end of days.
It's not a hobby, it's a lifestyle.
It's just in me. I don't know how to live any different. Let's get going.
This Sunday is no different. A normal retiree activity, like playing golf, is not on the agenda. Instead, they are testing the strength of their home against incoming gunfire.
I don't need mine as big because I hit better.
That's bad.
By shooting live rounds at the walls.
This test is necessary to find out how effective the house is against small arms fire.
With the town of San Antonio only 35 miles away, they fear that the end of the world will bring desperate and armed civilians to their doorstep.
People will show up and want food, and you cannot feed the entire world. So we want a full 100 yards, and that's going to be right out here.
To simulate civilian fire, they are testing the .22 caliber rifle, one of the most common guns in America.
Okay, weapons hot. Commence firing. Dead on. It went through it. I heard it. And that 3/8 steel.
The result of this test, whether a bullet will go through the wall or not, could mean the difference between life and death for those inside a house under siege.
Hopefully, we won't have new holes in the house.
Yeah, we got one round here, one round here, one round here, one round here. Just a slight dent.
The test is a success.
Okay.
Some people would think that this was not normal behavior, but it gives a whole lot of peace of mind that rounds are not going to be going completely through. I haven't been called crazy to my face except for a couple of my kids. You know, that doesn't worry me. I mean, this is the lifestyle that we live. And if people don't like it, they don't have to come on the property.
All of Paul and Gloria's preps are in readiness for one extreme worldwide event, a complete magnetic polar shift.
We are seeing an increase of earthquakes that I think are probably associated with some earth changes.
Scientists agree that the Earth's north and south magnetic poles are constantly moving location by up to 25 miles a year. And every 300,000 years or so, prehistory has shown that they will actually switch completely. The last polar shift occurred 780,000 years ago, leading some people to believe we're overdue for a global flip-flop that could have devastating consequences.
The worst case would be a massive earthquake type thing where the continents did a fast shift. Most all the buildings would fall down and collapse.
Paul believes that a polar shift will also cause the continent's land masses to shift north and south along the Earth's mantle. potentially moving Antarctica towards the equator and Texas towards Canada.
The earthquakes have been stepping up lately, and by next year, I'm thinking the rattling will continue and intensify. Everybody should be prepared.
A typical house would be no match against the devastation Paul and Gloria fear, so they built their very own Doomsday fortress, the Range Compound.
We built our house out of 9 40-foot steel shipping containers. They are designed to carry about 58,000 pounds each and be stacked 8 high. So that's an incredible 500,000 pounds of weight that these things can sustain.
Shipping containers are normally used to transport tons of commercial goods across the ocean. But recently, their ability to withstand heavy abuse and their low cost, around $4,000 each, has made them a desired building material for dedicated preppers.
Essentially, I'm in a welded steel box, so I'm not worried about my containers shifting in an earthquake.
When I walked up to it the first time, it was just, wow, this is really something we've done.
We have a structure that totally houses, that will totally feed us, and totally protect us.
The compound is based on the layout of a medieval castle, a square fort that encloses a safe courtyard and allows them 360 degrees of protection.
From the ground, we can see about 800 yards in every direction. From the roof, we can see about 2 miles. So we have clear fields of fire for out to 1,000 meters. So that gives us an area that we can see people, that we can see predators.
But they cannot protect the compound against everything. Some believe a continental shift could potentially move Texas to a different point on the globe, completely changing the climate.
If we shift north, winters are going to be harsher. We have to assume that we're going to have crop failures.
The prospect of a future without readily available food drives Paul and Gloria to cook not 3, but 8 meals a day, allowing them to put aside enough food each week to survive an extra 11 post-apocalyptic days.
What kind of chicken are you making?
The chimichanga base.
Oh, chimichanga base. And we're going to can that?
Yep.
The 25 pounds of chicken they preserve today has enough protein to sustain 4 people for 6 days.
We're preparing for family and friends. We're not just preparing for the 2 of us.
Gloria's favorite Doomsday candy is made from fresh corn, dehydrated so it can last for over a decade.
Dried corn is a very good morale booster and treat food.
It's extremely sweet. Kids eat it just like candy.
8 gallons of fresh corn dehydrates into a 1-gallon jar.
So 2 weeks supply for 4 people.
And at night, the day's hunt is butchered so it can be smoked and stored.
This dough could potentially feed 22 people for a week.
All of their food is added to the pantry, a container with a 58,000-pound capacity. And right now, they're running out of space.
I would say we have in excess of 50,000 pounds of food.
Corn, we're at 700. In this room, it's our main pantry, and we have everything starting with pastas, wet canned goods, spices.
FEMA guidelines suggest that 3 days' worth of food should be stored in your home in case of a disaster. For Paul and Gloria, that is just a drop in the bucket.
We could make it for 15 years for 22 people.
But back here in the cans, they have the 20-year shelf life or more.
Right.
Food storage is like an insurance policy. We figure that our food has actually gained 400% in value since we started. So instead of investing in a 401k that just now lost $27,000 in the last 3 weeks, we have actually gained in value of 400%. So for me, that's a good investment.
Paul believes that a rapid continental shift would cause earthquakes that will knock out the electrical grid and rupture gas lines. So after the day's food preps are complete, he spends up to 7 hours a day working on alternative sources of energy.
When the grid goes down, I just flip a switch and we're in power. This machine on the roof, called an upwind machine, you're putting out about 650 of the 750 watts that the machine is capable of handling.
Paul has built and installed a system of small windmills and solar panels, making the compound capable of being completely independent of the national grid.
Instead of having one huge solar panel array and one huge wind generator, we've opted to spread that out. So if I have a wind generator failure, it's not going to affect my entire system.
Wind and solar are just two ways that Paul worked to doomsday-proof his energy. The third way is just as effective, but not quite as clean.
The methane is run by the pig poop and actually our poop too.
Methane is a highly flammable gas produced from human and animal waste.
Sewer line comes in from the house and then from the pig pens and in to the methane biodigester.
Despite its origins, methane is actually an odorless gas.
This gives us a cooking fuel that is not a wood product. In the case that the flag went up and society went to hell, you could smell wood smoke from several miles away. And I don't want to be that person that's burning that wood smoke. The structure is actually taking care of me. We're prepared here. We have water, we have food, we have means to grow things, we have our animals here, we have all the power requirements that we want. I can get a good night's sleep knowing that I'm protected within these walls.
Paul and Gloria have built a prepper's paradise that they believe will see them through 15 years of hell on earth. But if staying put becomes too dangerous, they also have a plan B that will take their prepping to a whole new extreme. Paul Range and his wife Gloria Haswell are convinced that the world's continental landmasses will soon shift north or south along the Earth's mantle, causing catastrophic earthquakes that will flatten our cities and crush our infrastructure.
Even if we shifted 2 or 3 degrees, it would still throw everything into chaos. There will be a series of devastating earthquakes, and I just want to be ready.
Determined to face the apocalypse with reinforcements, Paul and Gloria have picked a team of 22 friends and family who will live and fight alongside them.
We're just going to do a little target shooting and a little range safety.
Today, some of the team assembles at the Range compound to hone their prepping skills and solidify their plans.
All right, make yourself ready. Load. Range is going hot. Fire when ready.
The time that I realized that I needed to prep was in Vietnam. I was there in 1975 when it fell. The chaos was just unbelievable. I just don't want to be stuck in that type of situation. You may fire at will. So because of our military experience, we leaned a little heavier toward military type. We have probably 3/4 that marksman.
I was a Marine, he was Army.
Yep. Yep, both grunts. I was in Iraq. There's no infrastructure at all. It's gone down.
All right, trim the weapon.
I don't like being helpless. And now I feel good because I have a plan.
Good job, Stevie boy.
And I feel prepared.
You want to shoot 38?
Not really.
There are some couples, there are some with kids.
Move to wherever you're comfortable at. Go to town.
That children are the future.
Excellent form.
All right, shotgun boy.
And the nice thing is that children growing up in that type of environment are not going to really know anything else.
But building, stocking, and manning a bulletproof compound is not enough for Paul and Gloria. Like many preppers, they want the complete insurance of a plan B.
Our goal, no matter what happens, except for in the case of something really extreme happening, is to actually stay in place. But if we had to, we could uproot and uproot really quickly. Let's get going. Let's get moving.
In case the Range compound is compromised, they have formulated an extensive evacuation plan, a Bugout, that will take the entire team to a second location 12 hours north. And today, they will test it out.
We're running a drill to make sure that we can load up in under an hour and bug out.
They will drive specially customized Bugout vehicles, second-hand school buses.
We've got a house sitting on wheels. We took all the seats but a few out. We have a way for at least 4 to 6 people to sleep within the confines of the vehicle.
Paul knows from Vietnam that being able to bug out quickly could mean the difference between life and death. Timing is everything.
All right, guys, we have 55 minutes to get the bus loaded up. Let's get going.
Loose cans, loose cans.
Loose cans.
Their aim today is to leave the compound with their animals, approximately 10,000 pounds of food and 310 gallons of water in under an hour.
Let's put these boxes over here. There's a tail gunner is going to be there.
All right.
Let me have the carbine, please. And we're going to lean the carbine in the corner. We believe that we can survive for about 10 years with what we're going to take with us. Come on, goats. We're bugging out. Come on. Our animals are actually trained to bug out. Come on. Come on, goats. Hurry, hurry, hurry. You're going to get left behind.
We've got water, we've got food and kitchen equipment, we've got the medical supply. We're ready to go.
All right, guys, let's get going.
Go, 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 go.
Let's go, let's go. Pulling out.
The convoy of buses will travel to a pre-designated safe point 2.5 hours from the compound. From there, they will go on to their final and secret destination.
We have a specific time of the day that we are going to leave because we want to move through some areas in the dark and we want to move through some areas in the daylight. We can get to anywhere within the state without having to actually pass through a big city. A school bus was actually designed to roll over and everybody inside come out intact. When we feel that we need to pull over for the night, then we are going to actually circle the wagons. The pioneers going across this country circle their wagons for extremely valid reasons.
By replicating the pioneers and creating a square with 4 bug-out vehicles, Paul's team can spend the night in the safe central haven, defend it on all sides.
With a minimum of 4 guards, you have a defensive position.
Paul and Gloria's team have successfully bugged out to their safe point within the appointed time.
We can be really proud of the fact that that plan worked.
I knew you could do it.
Good job. I think that you need to be responsible for yourself and for your family, and to do anything less is a criminal act.
The experts in disaster preparedness, practical preppers, have concluded that you have multiple sources of water and extensive food stores, and that your home defense and emergency evacuation plans are excellent. Also, your energy and fuel alternatives are exceptional. You have an overall fantastic level of preparedness. However, keeping your 15-year food supply in one area is a grave risk, leaving you vulnerable to losing it all with one direct hit or one strong attack.
That's a fair assessment. That would be a good idea to diversify the food into multiple locations.
Our thought on that was that probably if our food supply was compromised by us being overrun in this position, we wouldn't really care at that point because we'd be dead. Since the original filming, we have added several things. In reference to splitting up our food storage, we have actually stored a little bit more food within our bug-out vehicles, and we do have caches along the way of our bug-out route. So that's some of the things that we've actually changed.
Christopher Nieragesh is prepping for a killer earthquake that could completely flatten the city of Los Angeles. Faced with overwhelming destruction, he plans on taking to the Hollywood streets, foraging to survive. But will the experts be impressed by his lone wolf approach? Christopher Nieragesh runs several farmers markets and teaches, grows his own food, and loves to hike in the hills around LA. He's a regular, down-to-earth Californian. Except,
I'm preparing for the possibility of a devastating earthquake in the city of Los Angeles. It would be the height of stupidity to be aware of earthquakes and watch the news and see what happens and not make some preparations. I live here in Southern California. This is earthquake country.
the San Andreas Fault runs like an 800-mile-long scar down the western coast of the United States and Mexico. It's up to a mile across and at least 10 miles deep. A gigantic earthquake along this fault line would rip the state of California apart.
Some people do say we're past due for an 8 on the Richter scale, which would be devastating.
In the next 30 years, geologists believe that the probability of a major 6.7 or higher earthquake in Southern California is nearly 100%. A truly massive quake could kill thousands and leave millions homeless.
What do you think the scenario would be in Los Angeles? For example, today when the Lakers win a game, the local thugs are burning cars and breaking into windows and looting stores to celebrate. A major quake will bring panicked, chaotic behavior by people.
Christopher's plan after a quake includes being able to survive under the radar on the chaotic city streets.
Everybody has a different take on what they think preparedness is. If somebody likes to hole up in a place and hide, I believe that that is the antithesis of survival. You've got to split. You can't stay there. You have to be on the road.
Christopher regularly tests his street survival skills right in the middle of the concrete jungle. His only supplies, those he can carry in his bag.
Most people call this a bug-out pack, but I just refer to it as a survival pack. Tools are what's important. This is from a chainsaw. The wire saws in the backpacking stores are junk. Oh, a sling. There are birds and ducks and things, and if I had to, potentially I could catch some meat for dinner with my sling. A knife. You never have enough knives. I have never seen a survival kit manufactured that I liked. Some twine, because it's made with somebody else's needs in mind. You are the best person for making your own survival kit. You know what your needs are, your family's needs, your terrain, what your situation is going to be. If there was a major quake, there's quite a few things that will happen simultaneously. Electricity is going to go down. Every transaction is electronic. You won't go to a store and be able to buy stuff, certainly not with a card. It behooves you to have cash and coin on hand. Along the LA River, the homeless guys who come here at night are very territorial. So you may have to engage in some serious trading. So one of the things that I suggest carrying in a survival pack like this is articles of trade. These are a roll of Eisenhower dollars. So people will treat this as if it's worth more than $1 when they want cash.
But Christopher is also prepping for a time when his cash runs out, and he will have to be able to trade and barter to survive.
Homemade arrow points. They could be used for making arrows. They could be articles of trade under certain circumstances. They are intrinsically useful.
A massive earthquake in LA could decimate highways and limit supply lines. Christopher believes that food will be in short supply. He prepares regularly, foraging for his food in the parking lots and concrete underpasses around the city.
A lot of the greens that I eat for salad or additions to soup and vegetable dishes, they are what most people would call weeds. We're along the LA River and we've got a freeway next to us, and you'd think that there's no food here at all. But the fact is there really is food everywhere. Food is not in short supply. It's brains that are in short supply. Here's one example of an edible plant. It's called lamb's quarter or wild spinach. Frequently I'll go out and we'll find greens and we'll make a salad in the wild. I'm going to take just a few of the tips for lunch later.
In just a 2-acre area, Christopher has foraged 10 different plants that can be used to make his salad.
Just chopping it all into bite-sized pieces. My survival kit usually has salad dressing. One of my motivating reasons for getting into botany in the first place was that if there was a widespread disaster, I could eat. I know that I'm never going to be hungry for the rest of my life because there's plenty of food everywhere, even if there were no stores.
If the big one hits, the city's hospitals could be severely damaged, understaffed, and overflowing with patients. Christopher's botanical skills allow him to treat wounds with just what he can find growing in the city.
The willow tree is found everywhere where there's water. See, this is a medicinal plant. When you take off the fresh bark, the cambium layer contains a high amount of salicin or salicylic acid. That's aspirin. What if I get into a knife fight? What if I had a wound on my arm? You don't want infections, you want to stop the bleeding. Make it a little bit moist, press it onto a wound. And I would bind this on tightly onto the wound and leave it there for a while to get the effect of the aspirin or the salicylic acid.
Settling down for the night in the dangerous and quake-devastated city means being able to light a fire.
Fire is as critical, and I could even argue more critical than food. I can remember going into the woods with book matches and stick matches, and in the rain and in the wet and the cold, that's just not good enough.
Christopher carries fire starters at all times and can even create a fire using just scraps. The hand drill method uses a stick to create friction and sparks in a notch of soft wood.
In the old days, when Native Americans left home, like we might leave home and you can't leave home without your credit card and your cell phone, they had to have some kind of a knife and a fire starter. Those were like absolutely critical tools for survival and for day-to-day functioning. So we finally got our fire. We can cook our food, we can purify our water, we can make tools, we could signal, we could stay warm, we could stay alive. I've survived in the urban environment my whole life. To be able to go into nature and create something that you need, that's invaluable. I mean, you can't buy that. If the world came to an end and civilization collapsed, I do feel confident that there is a sufficient number of people out there today that are doing and practicing these things, that civilization will arise again.
Christopher, our experts in disaster preparedness, practical preppers, feel you're extremely well-rounded in survival skills. And gathering wild resources would prove invaluable if the big one were to hit LA. However, although you are able to live off the land, you must accept the possibility that during an earthquake, the wild areas in LA may quickly become depleted.
I completely agree.
We recommend that you store more food to prepare for this possibility.
I would tend to agree that you can never have enough. You should always have more water than you think is sufficient, and you should always have more food than you think is sufficient.
Also, in a true crisis situation, you will be well served to carry guns for your protection and choose a safe bug-out location in advance that could be used as a fortified base.
He actually does not know what possible plan I do have like that, but it's a valid point, and I am in complete agreement. Thank you. So now that National Geographic has been here, what have I done differently? Well, I have looked at what I store and what I do, and I have tried to make a few minor adjustments. But I look at the skills that I try to develop and the friendships that I try to cultivate, and I feel that those are key areas that are always in need of development for long-term survival. I get out there and work to create the kind of society that you really want to be a part of. And I feel that's what I have done as a result of this National Geographic visit.
Next, Houston party girl Megan Hurwitz prepares for a worldwide oil crisis that she believes will devastate the entire nation. Megan Hurwitz is a young, uninhibited, independent woman living in Houston, Texas. She is a web developer who loves her cats, her convertible, and her cocktails with friends.
I'll drink to them.
And
I'm preparing for a catastrophic oil crisis. And when hits the fan, I'm gonna be fitter than you are. I love Houston. I've always been a big fan of our city skyline, good eats and good drinks. I like to drink. I like to have fun with my friends. I like to go out. Cheers, ladies! To the world. May it not end, but if it does, we're prepared. I also believe that we're going to have an oil crisis in my lifetime.
the United States is the largest consumer of oil in the world. And Megan believes that when an oil crisis occurs, the United States oil reserves will be quickly used up.
Oil is used to make a lot of the products that we use today. It's used to power our cars and to power the 18-wheelers that take us food. If the Middle Eastern countries suddenly cut us off for gas, we would be very, very quickly in trouble. Houston's got just about a 3-day supply of everything, including oil and food. All of that would go off the shelves almost immediately.
Megan fears a global oil crisis will hurl the country and her city into chaos in a matter of days.
We're gonna starve. That's going to send everybody into a panic. They're going to run out to all of the supermarkets and buy up everything that you need to survive. People are going to start stealing other people's food. You're going to hear gunshots, a lot of them. People are going to start to kill each other. When people's kids go hungry, they're going to come after you. Your lives would be in danger, my life would be in danger, and it would happen within a matter of days.
Megan lives in a 700 square foot apartment, which makes prepping for long-term survival a challenge.
There are so many problems prepping in a tiny little urban apartment. We have no space for preps. We've had to fill up every nook and cranny with canned goods and water. We've had to dedicate a lot of space in our second bedroom. We've got MREs. Most likely this will feed me for 3 months. I have a veggie bank and an herb bank. It's important to have seats because if the stuff really hits the fan, you're not gonna have any way of buying food. These are the safes. This one's for smaller handguns and pistols. This one's for full rifles. I've got guns, bullets, lots of bullets, lots of bullets. I used to be a lot more shallow. I still love high heels and I love fashion, but I'm also thinking about, is there anything that I can conceal a weapon in? Is there anything that I can hook a harness to? Is there anything that I can store a gun case in? I plan to bug in anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks in this apartment. Have my preps that I have here to feed myself and to keep myself hydrated, wait for everybody to panic and leave, and then bug out as soon as everybody's left. I'll be walking out of Houston to a bug-out vehicle at an undisclosed location. I'm going to Mexico. Survival Kitty wants to be cute. That's his plan of survival. Unfortunately, cats are not as useful as dogs when it comes to a survival situation. My boyfriend's plan for the kitty cats, if the fan, is to put a bullet in their head. They had a good life, we've spoiled them rotten, and he insists that once we get to the bug-out location, we'll take more in. Sorry, Timber. Right there, right in the brainstem. I've only been called crazy for prepping once, but she was really malicious about it. But you know what? When the hits the fan, she's gonna starve to death, and I'm gonna go.
Expecting a Middle East oil shutdown, Megan has devised a way to evacuate Houston. But how will she hold up in a real-time bug-out simulation?
I think that was one of the mistakes that I made this time.
And what will the experts ultimately say about her urban survival strategy? Megan Hurwitz is a vibrant 20-something who spends her spare time taking full advantage of Houston's nightlife. She is also preparing for a global energy catastrophe that she fears will cause complete chaos, which will make bugging out her only chance at survival.
Bugging out basically means taking the goods that you need to survive, putting them in a backpack, and walking out on foot. This is my go bag. My go bag has 24 hours worth of preps that I keep on me at all times. It's really easy to carry around. It's very inconspicuous. It's meant for an emergency situation where I will be coming back home. Feminine products are really important to keep spares of. I keep pictures of my social security card, my driver's license, my passport, and birth control. Right now we have 160 condoms. So it'll last us, 4 or 5 days. This is my inch bag. An inch bag stands for I'm not coming home. And it carries everything that I would need in order to survive long enough to get to my bug out vehicle. The great thing about this bag is that it carries a lot of stuff, but one of the deterrents is that it's extremely obvious. This bag would be saying, please mug me, take my stuff, and leave me for dead.
Megan believes that the crippling economic effects of an oil crisis will increase crime exponentially. Today, she goes shopping for a bug-out bag that might reduce her risk of becoming a statistic.
I'm looking for a better bug-out bag. I need something a little bit more discreet than a camping bag. I'm preparing for the worst, as we all should. And so I'm looking for something with an external frame that I can hook bags to so that I can carry untraditional shaped gear.
This particular unit, as you can see, it hides everything that identifies it as a backpack. It goes within the ceiling compartment, and it looks like a regular attaché or a regular.
Cool.
And as I mean, instead of you carrying it like that, when you do get to the point that you have to have so much overweight and expansion within the bag, then you can very easily convert it into a backpack.
I want one of those.
Okay?
Like, you have no other stuff on you. What's the one thing that you would need?
Pepper spray is probably the easiest thing that a lot of women will carry. Think of this. The adrenaline is flowing, but guess what? It's not flowing in you until you're touched. It's already flowing. Once you've been contained or held, then the scenario changes. You're gonna have to have the mindset, if it ever happens, I'm going to survive.
I have some skills that I can trade. I have some useful preps that I can trade. And I think that I would survive on my feet for 3 or 4 months before I'd have to resort to less than savory means of supporting myself. You don't want to end up having to whore yourself out in order to live. And really, that's what a lot of women would face.
Megan plans to escape Houston by hiking out of the city with her 40-pound inch bag. In preparation, she works out 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, to make sure she will be able to complete the journey.
When the oil runs out, the cars won't work, the planes won't fly, the trucks won't drive. And I'm a machine. I have to make every part of me work at peak efficiency. I'm preparing for a time when I might have to fight my way out of this city. I'm gonna have to do a lot of climbing, up and down buildings, trying to get away, evasive maneuvers. So it's good for the ankles to kind of practice up. You don't want to snap one when you're doing your actual bug out because there's not going to be anyone to help you. And you're going to run into people who may have nefarious purposes.
Megan will need more than just brute strength to survive. Today she works with survival specialist Larry Phelan to learn important skills.
Megan came to me today to learn more about survival. If she has any problems with, the upcoming issues with the collapse of our society or whatever.
What can I do exactly if I lose my knife?
A knife is very easily made with a rock. The edge.
Wow.
Break those off like that and clean your fish.
So right now I'm following along the vertebrae.
Don't head that way too much. You got to get down until you get the right spot there. You can feel that bone touching your rock.
Cooking the fish will actually decrease the amount of nutrients and the calories that you're gonna get, so eating it raw is actually preferable, and I'm about to do that. Fishy, but very, very, very fresh.
If chaos engulfs Houston, as Megan believes, she feels she needs additional security.
Which one you shooting at? When the hits the fan, don't be the one standing in front of the fan. You better be prepared to defend yourself.
Any specific tips for how to deal with the situation as a woman?
You just have to make sure that they hear authority in your voice. You want to make sure they understand that I am not your average woman. I will pop a cap in your ass, and you're not taking my.
Nice.
The AR is a good choice for her. You're going to have a hard time beating this gun for fighting people.
One of my biggest issues is that I have trouble loading the magazines quickly.
Give it a spank.
In a combat situation, that would actually really slow me down and be a detriment to me.
Well, and that's why you need to darn sure practice that.
The AR-15 is my favorite.
I sure as hell wouldn't want you shooting at me.
Yeah.
Megan is prepping for a catastrophic global oil crisis that she believes will occur in her lifetime. But when she is faced with a practice bug out, will she be truly prepared? And what will the experts, practical preppers, think of her preparations and her evacuation plan?
This pack's getting pretty heavy.
Megan Hurwitz is preparing for a global oil crisis, which she believes will lead to a total breakdown of civilization. This party girl turned prepper practices shooting regularly.
Just put the gun up.
And does intense workouts daily. In the event of an oil shutdown, Megan fears that all motorized transportation will be useless, making the 50,000 miles of Houston roadways a giant parking lot. She believes her only chance to escape to safety is on foot.
Bye, kitties. Behave yourself.
Tonight, all of Megan's preps and training will be put to the ultimate test, a practice run of her on-foot evacuation plan.
It's going to be 10 to 12 miles depending upon what I have to go around and what obstacles I'm going to have to travel through. The best time to do this would be right at dusk. That way I'll have enough cover of darkness, but I'll still be able to see. There's a good chance there won't be any power, so I'll be completely in the dark for the most part. I'll be starting from the heights and making my way down Montrose and straight through the city. If I hurry, I can be there in 3 hours. If there's blockades, it could take me all the way to 4 or 5. When I do this for real, all this is gonna be dark. There's a few areas that I walk through that are not the most savory. There were a few points when I thought I might need to pull out my handgun. Some of the sketchier areas, I was a little worried about getting mugged. It's happened to me before. It could happen again. I can handle myself. From here, we're gonna head out of the city until I reach my Bugout vehicle, and then I'll be able to drive to my Bugout location. I'm about 6 miles from my final destination, and I've covered about 6 miles of ground. You do? Oh, you should always carry a spare pair on you. Kind of getting tired. This pack's getting a little heavy. My feet feel like they're about to fall off my ankles. So it's been a long 6 hours. Hike took twice as long as I thought it was going to. I'm just gonna continue to follow the brook out of town. In a real Bugout situation, it's best to follow the sewer lines and the rivers because they're inconspicuous. There's a somewhat fresh stream of water that can be purified. It's usually below the water table. It's away from the streets. It's really the best way to go. I think next time I'm gonna carry less gear. Maybe I can invest in some lighter gear. When you're doing a real Bugout, you want to be carrying in ounces, not pounds. And I think that was one of the mistakes that I made this time. All right, I'm exhausted, but I'm losing time, and I'm almost there. Not much further. I'm by no means an expert at any of this stuff. Even with all of the preparation and all of the skill sets I'm trying to learn and all the foresight that I'm putting into prepping, if the hit the fan next week, I probably wouldn't make it. If it hits the fan in 5 years, I'll probably be okay.
Megan, if, as you predicted, there's a global oil crisis in your lifetime, the experts, practical preppers, feel that your food and water storage will leave you woefully unprepared to remain in your apartment for any length of time.
That's about all we can afford.
And your plan to leave Houston will be your only alternative. Improving your self-defense skills and physical conditioning and having a prepped-out bag are all important steps. However, you should have at least 2 alternative routes.
I believe I have a smart route for evacuating the city, but I haven't given much thought to a secondary or tertiary plan. That's something that I'll be looking into very shortly.
Also, the experts' review estimates that your Bugout vehicle has only enough gas to take you 300 miles. At a minimum, Mexico is 320 miles from Houston. The experts advise that you store additional fuel in your vehicle or have hidden caches along the way.
I may not have enough gas to complete the journey, but I believe that there are opportunities to acquire or trade for it along the way. Since National Geographic has left, I enlisted myself in the U.S. military in the hopes that I would be able to help my fellow civilians if times were to grow darker than they are now. And I've actually completely revisited our Bugout location. I don't think I want to head down to Mexico because of the violence that's prevalent in that area. My advice to people is get it together because anything could happen.
How likely are the events featured in this program? The Earth's magnetic poles swap about every 400,000 years, but there is no evidence that a swap is due soon, and it wouldn't impact the Earth's tilt, rotation, or seismic activity. There has never been a complete cutoff of foreign oil to the United States, and it's not likely. Top importers are allies, Canada and Mexico. Also, the US produces about half the oil it consumes, and it has more than a month's supply in the world's largest government stockpile. And the possibility of a major earthquake, of magnitude 8.0 or higher, could hit Los Angeles in the next 30 years, but the chances are less than 3%.